class, my name is Misty Martin, and I'm so excited to be here with you for this term. The History 701. This week, we were tasked to discuss at least 2 dissertations on a history topic of our choice. This week, I chose to discuss female veterans of previous world wars. 2 of the dissertations that I've chosen to work with this week include I'm going to be a veteran of this war, America's Women's Writing from the Western Front, 1914 to 1919, by Catherine A. Evans, published in 2023, as well as Redefining Veteran, the Vietnam War and the Making of Women Veterans, 1979 to 1997, by Amy Rebecca Jacobs, published in 2013. So looking at the methodology between these 2 dissertations, I really wanted to point out that the first dissertation was really heavily based on journalism. And so the author really looked into a lot of newspapers and just really focused in on women's writing from the Western Front. So from France and the women that had fought in France or had been a part of the Great War. When looking into how she did her research, it was really important to note that she mentioned from the very beginning that what set her dissertation apart was that she really focused on finding articles and finding journalism that was written during that time versus what was written and what was published after the women's suffrage movement that was passed in 1920. And so she did make the claim that a lot of the journalism that was reported on in her dissertation was pretty rugged and it was pretty raw and it was not as polished as what was published from a lot of women writers after 1920. So I thought that was very interesting, and I love that content that was in her writing. And so with the second dissertation, what I really wanted to point out was that her sources and her methodology was really archival records, and it was a lot of oral history and interviews, and some of them were her own public oral history, some of them were already published, and she just put in a lot of research and a lot of time and effort into this dissertation. When looking into the content of the dissertations themselves, again, that first dissertation was very easy to read. It follows the main storyline of 3 different chapters of 3 different main characters, but she did integrate different women who had also fought in France or who were also part of the movement in France and had participated in the Great War. When looking at the Vietnam dissertation or the dissertation involving Vietnam, it was a little different because it was mainly about female veterans around Vietnam, and then it kind of moved on to more of a feminist take on the concept and PTSD, and then from there it went on to Desert Storm and then just the whole recognition in general. I will be quite honest that dissertation tend to be more ideological in its historical content, but I felt still it needed to be discussed because it was interesting in nature. I have studied female Vietnam veterans before in our historical methods class. This was a previous dissertation, so it is a little bit older and there is a lot more coming out to date on Vietnam veterans. I know mention of Diane Carson Evans in this author's dissertation. She has since this dissertation has been published, she has since written a book called her memoir has been published called Healing Wounds, which I'm going to post in the source list. It is a very good read, and it does have some crossover. If anyone is interested in reading it, it is really good. But yeah, so I wanted to wrap up with my conclusion on 2 very good dissertations this week, and I'm excited to see you all next week. Thank you.